Members of the largest federal employee union today held a rally just outside the gates of the Corpus Christi Naval Air Station, again calling for an end to the shutdown.
Our Marissa Cummings talked to the local leader of the American Federation of Government Employees chapter. Marissa, what did he have to say?
All the protesters at today's rally seem to share the same sentiment. They say the shutdown is unfair. The American Federation of Government Employees, or AFGE, has over 700,000 members around the country. The national chapter protested the shutdown in Washington, D.C. on Thursday, and the Corpus Christi AFGE president Kenneth Weeks says he felt they needed to do the same thing locally. Weeks says he opposes the shutdown because it weakens the nation's defenses and requires people to work without pay. He says that's not right.
We shouldn't punish federal employees for their bickering in Congress and the Senate and the White House. They need to get together and sit down and come up with a solution.
Weeks says the AFGE is doing what it can to provide support via food banks, legal advice, and other resources. If you want to contact AFGE, you can find out how by heading to our website at KIIITV.com.
Thank you, Marissa.